Much. Once you get a Bible, you can open up to 1 Samuel chapter 13, and we will continue our study through chapter 13. I bet this is expensive, man. How much does a guitar pick cost? Oh, somebody was like rocking. Yeah, ripping that thing up. 1 Samuel chapter 13. So you can open up there. It's good to see all of you. And we have been away from 1 Samuel for a little bit, but we're getting back into it today. If you haven't been in 1 Samuel 13, we will try to catch you up to the best of our ability. In fact, let me show you something here, just so you have an idea. This is a chapter breakdown. So chapters 1 to 7, we were focused on Samuel. Samuel is a prophet that God is using during that time. And then in chapters 8 through 15, we were focused on Saul. And that's where we're at. We're in chapter 13, so we're right, nearing the end of that. But am I back? I'm back. Chapters 8 to 15, Saul. So we have Samuel the prophet, Saul the first king of Israel, and then we will later on we'll see David. However, he is in a roundabout way. He's going to make an appearance in chapter 13 today. I'll point that out when we get to it. Won't actually name him by name, but you and I, being good Bible students, we are aware of. We're gonna recognize him when it comes. By way of announcements, as right before we start, there is a women's conference coming up, and they are wanting to invite the high school ladies. And so if you are one of the high school students, young ladies, there are flyers on the back counter, and we'll tell you how to sign up for that. Also, because I always forget, and I need to put this in my announcements at the end, but we are always, in here, we're always looking for individuals, students, who want to work sound for us and the computer for all the lyrics and all of that. And so just keep that in mind. If you'd like to serve during our services, we're always looking for that. And of course, worship leaders and people to vacuum and dust and all the different things. Let's open up to 1 Samuel chapter 13. And what I did was I titled 1 Samuel chapter 13, Terrible Twos. You may not be familiar with that phrase or that saying, so allow me to explain for you. Terrible Twos is a reference to children when they turn 2 years old. And the reason that it's terrible twos is because oftentimes you will hear parents say, oh man, my child is in their terrible twos. In other words, when they turned 2, everything just went south, and they just got bad. I've got news for you. They didn't get bad. They were already bad. It's just that at 2 years old, a little kid has learned how to walk around and grab things. And two of their favorite words are no and mine, and they begin to exercise their own will and their disobedience. And so it was already there when they were born. That was there, and for some people, they never seem to grow out of it. But let me read a list for you of these are called the property laws of a toddler. And a toddler can be anywhere from 1 to 3 years old, so that 2-year-old range. These are property laws of a toddler. This is how a toddler thinks. Number 1, if I like it, it's mine. Number 2, if it's in my hand, it's mine. Number 3, if I can take it from you, it's mine. If I had it a little while ago, it's mine. If it's mine, number 5, it must never appear to be yours in any way. Number 6, if I'm doing or building something, all the pieces are mine. Number 7, if it looks just like mine, it's mine. If I saw it first, number 8, it's mine. Number 9, if you are playing with something and you put it down, it automatically becomes mine. And then number 10, if it's broken, it's yours. Toddlers see things from their own perspective. The most important thing in a toddler's life is the toddler, him or herself. That selfishness is there. It's innate. It's part of the curse. It's part of something that we struggle with. And some people seem to never grow out of that. Some people seem to be 40 and 50 and 60 and 70-year-old toddlers. Everything is theirs. Everything is about them. And it seems for us that in 1 Samuel chapter 13, that Saul is headed that way. Let me remind you of something as we get into chapter 13 here. I will remind you that at his coronation, meaning when Saul was going to be officially declared king, they had to go look for him. He was hiding among the farming equipment, among the equipment that they had stored somewhere. They couldn't find him. Why? Because he was scared, because he was nervous, because he was shy, because he was humble. Those things are changing. And why did I call it the terrible twos? Well, look at verse 1 here as we begin to read. Saul reigned 1 year. And when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, so this is during his second year here, Saul chose for himself 3,000 men of Israel. 3,000. 2,000 were with him, that's Saul, in a place called Michmash, which, by the way, still exists to this day, and in the mountains of Bethel. And 1,000 of those 3,000, so 3,000 men, 2,000 were with Saul, another 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin, it's a city. The rest of the people he sent away, every man to his tent. Now we've just been introduced to Jonathan. Jonathan is Saul's son. You are going to like Jonathan. If you stick around for the rest of these studies, his character will continue to develop. He's an excellent young man. But here we're introduced to him, and he's in control of 1,000 of those men. Now, this is going to become clear in just a moment, but I'll make it known right now. In verse 2, when it says 3,000 men, it means 3,000 fighting men. Okay, so not just guys, but 3,000 guys who could fight. Why is that? Now, let me show you what I've got here. If you are a note taker, this is a main division. This is the first of the main divisions. In other words, there's lots of verses in this chapter. The first 7 verses I titled warfare. Okay? So we're talking about fighting men. We're talking about warfare. Now, what happens in verse 3 is we get our first subpoints. We've got a main division there, verses 1 to 7, warfare, and then we've got our first subpoint of that main division, which is verse 3. And verse 3 says, and Jonathan, that's the guy with 1,000 fighting men, attacked the garrison of the Philistines. That means a stronghold, or that would be like a castle, a safe place of the Philistines. Now, he takes 1,000 men. He attacks that garrison, that stronghold of the Philistines. Who are the Philistines? The Philistines are much different from the Philippines, okay, just in case you were wondering. The Philistines were an ancient people that were really a plague to Israel, and Israel, as you're going to find out today, was a plague to the Philistines. The Philistines are giving the Israelites problems. They're problematic. They always have been for the Israelites. Why? Well, that is because, long story short, there were Israelites a long time before what you and I are reading right now. There was a past generation that was supposed to completely eliminate the Philistines. They didn't do their job. So the Philistines continue to be problematic for the Israelites. Now, Jonathan, because they are enemies, the Israelites and the Philistines, Jonathan, being an Israelite, takes his 1,000 men. He goes and attacks this city, or this stronghold in Geba, and the Philistines heard of it. Now at the end of verse 3 it says, "Then Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, 'Let the Hebrews hear.'" So they speak Hebrew, so sometimes they're called the Hebrews, and now what he's doing is he's blowing the trumpet. What is he blowing on that trumpet? Maybe it's "Kind of Blue" by Miles Davis. Yes? No. It wasn't a jazz tune. What it was it was a call to action. He's calling out all of the armies of the Israelites, "Come and fight. Let the Hebrews hear. Everybody come on out." So the Philistines have been attacked. Now, beginning in verse 4, we have our next subpoint, verses 4 and 5, which is attracting. So that horn, that attack, and that horn went out, that trumpet, and so it attracted some attention from two different groups of people. Verse 4, it attracted attention from the Israelites. It says, "Now all Israel heard it said that Saul had attacked a garrison of the Philistines." Now let me read that for you one more time, and then I'm going to ask you a trick question. Okay, verse 4. "Now all Israel heard it said that Saul had attacked a garrison of the Philistines." Is that statement true? Is it accurate? Is it factual, or is it false? Anybody know? Anybody feeling wild this afternoon and you want to take a wild guess? All right, very good. Glad that you're not thinking. Here's what we're going to do. I want you to go back, please, to verse 3. Okay, watch this in verse 3. "And Jonathan attacked the garrison of the Philistines." Let me read it for you one more time. "And Jonathan attacked the garrison of the Philistines." So in verse 4 it says, "Now all Israel heard it said that Saul had attacked a garrison of the Philistines." So did Saul attack the garrison of the Philistines? All right, let me read it for you one more time. Verse 3 says, "And Jonathan attacked the garrison of the Philistines." Verse 4 says, "Now all Israel heard it said that Saul had attacked a garrison of the Philistines." Is that true or is that false?
False.
Ah, there it is. Very good, Noah. Got tired of hearing me go over that. Quit whining about it. Just move on. Yes, that is correct. It's false. Saul didn't attack. Now, probably what's happening is Saul's the king. He's in charge of the army. So they said, "Oh, it was Saul that attacked." When in reality, it was Jonathan. Why did I make such a big deal about that? Let's pause for a moment. What we are doing as we go through 1 Samuel is that we are learning lots of qualities, leadership qualities, lots of leadership qualities. Now, when I say that, some of you will immediately check out. You go, "You know what? I'm not a leader, and so I don't need to pay attention anymore." But let me explain something to you, point some things out. Leadership when we're talking about leadership in here, we're not just talking about leading a country like Saul. And we're not even necessarily talking about church leadership, although it could be church leadership, or it could be any other area of leadership. Let me mention some ways that you might encounter leadership or being a leader. If you play sports, the team or the coach might choose you to be the captain. Might be because you're a great player. It might be because you're, older than everybody else on the team, whatever it might be. It might be volleyball, it might be basketball, baseball, football, soccer, whatever the sport is. You might be captain or co-captain. That would make you a leader. You're in a leadership position, okay? Now, you might be in a club at school. Maybe you're in a Christian club. Maybe you're in the science club. Maybe you're in some other club, drama club, whatever it might be. And maybe you're the leader of that group. That's a leadership position. Let me give you another one. You might get a group report in school. You ever do group reports or group projects? Anybody ever do group projects? And some of you probably, if you're in here, you're probably a great student, and so you probably hate group projects because there's always some loser on your team that doesn't want to do anything, and you end up doing extra work. But that would put you in a leadership position. If you're in a group project and your group looks at you and goes, "You know what, I think that you should be the leader." You're in a leadership position. Thus, there are many, many different scenarios where you might experience being a leader or having some leadership with other people following you In which case, you can implement the things that we're learning here on Sunday mornings. There's lots of leadership qualities and characteristics. Now, let me say something else before we get back to our study here. That is this, that smart people will learn from other people. Smarter people will learn from other people's mistakes. I'll say it one more time. Smart people will learn from other people. Smarter people will learn from other people's mistakes. Here's a common mistake that young people make. I know none of you would ever make this mistake, but it's a common mistake that a lot of young people make, and that is they don't want to talk to anybody old. Don't give me nobody old. You know what? I don't need that. What I need is someone who understands life. I need to talk to somebody the same age as me. Now think about that for a moment. You're 14, you're 15, you're 16, you might be 17, you might be 18. You find somebody that's the same age as you, they know all about life, right? Well, they might know all about life as far as a 15 or 16 or 17 or 18-year-old is, but they don't know all about life as far as a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old or a 50 or a 60 or a 70 or an 80-year-old. Somebody that's much older, that has experienced maybe twice, maybe 3 times, maybe 4 times, maybe 5 times as much life as I have. It seems like, man, maybe I should talk to that person and find out, what kind of wisdom they can give me. Because here's what you're going to find. They can tell you what works and maybe more importantly, what doesn't work. They can say to you, well, actually, I did that, and this is what's going to happen. That's not going to work out. And you can avoid some of those big mistakes or pitfalls that life presents to us. So it would behoove. That's a really neat word that means it would be very helpful for you to talk to somebody older and go, hey, sometimes you can learn some good things from people, from older people, and sometimes you can learn, and I'd be willing to bet that you probably have learned some bad things from older people. They taught you your first cuss words, or they taught you how to, lie to your parents, or whatever it is. They taught you some bad things, or maybe they know a language and they taught you, bad words in that language or whatever. I'd be willing to bet that some of those people that were teaching you things were older people. Well, you can learn good things from them, or you can learn mistakes from them and go, you know what, man, you're older than me, but I can see how you're living. I'm not doing what you did. Now, what happens is we learn as we're reading about Samuel leading up to this, we learn some great things about leadership. And we even learn some valuable things about leadership from Saul. But in chapter 13, things begin to take a turn and we begin to learn some bad things from Saul. And we're being introduced to those things now, and it's just a small thing. And you might go, you know what, it's not really that big a deal, but it's a small indicator. Verse 4, now all Israel heard it said that Saul had attacked a garrison of the Philistines. And Saul never says, wait a minute, that wasn't me. It was my army, but it wasn't me. That was my son Jonathan. He did it. He never pays any attention to any of that. Just to give you a little glimpse, there's going to come a time real soon after this where Saul is going to want to kill Jonathan. You go, wait, it's his own son. I know. Saul is going loco and lococo. The position is getting to him. But here there's a little indicator. Saul takes the credit for it. Everybody's giving him credit for it. He doesn't say anything to correct it. Now, verse 4 continues on this way. This is what people had heard, and that Israel had also become an abomination or a curse to the Philistines. And the people were called together to Saul at Gilgal. So what happened? People were attracted. The Israelites were attracted to that trumpet blowing. They said, hey, we want to come. We want to fight along with you, Saul. But it also attracted the Philistines, verse 5. Then the Philistines gathered together to fight with Israel. Look at this. 30,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand which is on the seashore in multitude. How many people did Saul have? Does anybody remember what those numbers were? He started out with 3,000, and then he took 1,000 and sent those with Jonathan. That left him with 2,000. In total, he had 3,002 people, right? Because you got the 3,000 soldiers and you got Saul and Jonathan. 3,000 soldiers. Verse 5 says the Philistines, it also attracted them, verse 5, and they showed up with 30,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, and more people than they could even number. As many people as there is sand on the seashore. In other words, a multitude. And it says at the end of verse 5, and they came up and encamped in Michmash to the east of Beth Aven. So it makes sense that our next subpoint is the word afraid. Imagine, or you can guess who's afraid. Verse 6, when the men of Israel saw that they were in danger, for the people were distressed, that means they were afraid. Look at this. Then the people, this is the Israelites, hid in caves, in thickets. Thickets is thick bushes. Thickets. In rocks, in holes, and in pits. And some of the Hebrews, even verse 7, crossed over the Jordan River to the land of Gad and Gilead. As for Saul, he was still in Gilgal, and all the people followed him. But at the end of verse 7, they followed him trembling. They were afraid. They were afraid. With good reason, right? They've got 3,000. The Philistines are showing up with multiple thousands of people. Everyone thought that Saul was great for attacking, even though it was Jonathan. But now they're changing their tune. Now, the fact that they were afraid makes sense why our next main division is worry, verses 8 to 18. Verse 8. Then he, that Saul, waited 7 days, according to the time set by Samuel. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. What's going on? Saul had sent a message to Samuel, we're going to battle. Samuel, we need you to come. Samuel's the prophet. He's the religious leader. We need you to come. We need you to give an offering. We need you to bless. We need God on our side. Samuel wasn't showing up. So the people in verse 8 that are mentioned, the people that were scattered, means Saul's army. Everybody was leaving. Okay? He's got 2,000 men with him. Jonathan's got 1,000, 3,000. They're all splitting. They're all leaving. They're scared. Samuel's not showing up. God's not with us. We're getting out of here. People jump to all sorts of conclusions. But you'll notice at the beginning of verse 8, then he waited 7 days according to the time set by Samuel. So Samuel had told Saul, give me 7 days, I'll be there. Remember, we're talking about ancient times. Can't just jump in a plane, leave March Air Force Base, and end up in Kuwait in 2 hours. Can't do that. It's taking several days. I don't know what Samuel was doing, but Samuel says, give me 7 days, I'll be there. Now, what happens here is this in verse 9. So Saul said, say that 3 times fast. So Saul said, bring a burnt offering and peace offerings here to me. Okay, so what he asked Samuel to do, Samuel's not showing up, so now he says, man, everybody's leaving, bring me the stuff. I'll do it myself. And in verse 9, he offered the burnt offering. Now, I'll tell you, Samuel's going to point it out, but I'll tell you just real quickly, that was against the law, against the rules. Saul was a king. He just took the position of a priest. That was a no-no. You're not supposed to do that, and he's going to pay for that. We'll get to that in a couple minutes. But verse 10 says, now it happened. Look at this. As soon as he had finished presenting the burnt offering, guess who showed up? Samuel. And Saul went out to meet him that he might greet him. Now, what did verse 8 say? Verse 8 says that Saul was waiting 7 days because Samuel had told him, wait 7 days. Saul goes, man, it's the 7th day. This cat's not showing up. Bring me the stuff. I'm going to present the offering. And he takes the position and the responsibilities of a priest. Never should have done that. He's the king. There's 2 separate offices. And he goes ahead and he gives the offering. As soon as the offering, the sacrifice, the ceremony is over, here comes Samuel. So in verse 8, when it says, but Samuel did not come to Gilgal, it means that he did not come yet. He arrived there on the seventh day. He had told Saul 7 days. He shows up on the seventh day. What happened? Saul was worried and grew impatient. And so look what happens in verse 10. Saul goes out to meet him, it says, that he might greet him. The word greet means to bless. So in other words, Saul comes out like, oh, God bless you, my friend Samuel. Everything's good. Everything's fantastic. Well, in verse 11, Samuel asks him a question. You know it's bad, right? When you say hi to your mom or dad, hey, mom, hey, dad, and they hit you with a question. What have you done? Right? What have you done? And that's what he asked them in verse 11. What have you done? Now, let me give you a little bit of insight here. I want to help you guys out because I love you. So this is coming from, I used to be young, and now I'm an old dad. Okay, so I've been on both sides. So here's where you can learn something from an old man. When you've done something wrong, whatever it might be, and dad or mom comes and they come to you and they say, what have you done? The best thing that you can do is start with a question. They asked you a question, you ask them a question. Here's the question. The question is, will you please forgive me? The next thing that you should say is, I blew it. I messed up. I was the one who broke it. Or, I did push her. Or, yes, I was the one that broke the window. Or, yes, I'm sorry, I'm the one that scratched your car. Or, yeah, I accidentally let the dog out. Or, yes, it was me, I forgot to clean up after the dog. Whatever it is, just come clean immediately. It's going to make everything so much better. When a parent, me being a parent, asks you, what have you done? What they're doing is they're giving you an opportunity to just come clean. Just come clean. That's the very best thing you could do. And I always counsel people, ask for forgiveness. Don't just say, I'm sorry, because then you're going to get another question. What are you sorry for? You sorry because you got caught? Don't say that. Say, please forgive me. Would you please forgive me? See, what that does is it immediately engages the other person, in this case, parent, maybe later on a boss, I don't know, but it immediately engages them. Now, you've just asked them for forgiveness, so you now are asking something of them. You're asking them for mercy. You're saying, please, forgive me. Can you do that? Can you find that in your heart to forgive me? It's going to make everything better. Samuel walks up in verse 11 and asks him, what have you done? He wants Saul to just come clean. Now, what did I title this here? Verses 11 and 12, I titled, Reacted Selfishly. I told you that we're learning some things about leadership. Here is a big one. This is we used to say in the 80s, we would say mondo. This is a mondo one. This is huge. Pay attention to what, I'll point some things out, but pay attention to verse 11. Here's how Saul reacts. Saul said, when I saw. Now, pause just for a moment. Let me show you something. 2 Corinthians 5:7. Paul wrote, and there's a typo in here. Sorry about that. Autocorrect gets me every time. For we walk be faith, not be sight. That's not what it's supposed to say. It's supposed to say, for we walk by faith, not by sight. Someone in the previous service was judging me and had to come up and tell me right away, you're an idiot, you spelled it wrong. For we walk by faith, not by sight. What does that mean? How many of you have heard that verse before? Anybody ever heard that? Okay, some of you have heard that verse before. Walk by faith, not by sight. Now, let's just break this down real quickly. When it says, for we walk, the word walk is synonymous with live. So we live by faith, not by sight. What does that mean? Here's what it means. It means that for the Christian, we live according to what the Bible teaches. That's living, walking by faith, or living by faith. In other words, I'm placing my faith in what God's word says. So I'm walking or living according to faith. I'm not living according to sight. And the word sight is also synonymous with feelings. So I'm living according to faith, not feelings. Let me give you a practical situation. This is one that I use often. Really cute guy or girl walks up, and they smell good and they look good and dress good and all the different things, and they come and start, sweet talking you, and hook, line, and sinker. There you go, you're gone. Did you make a decision based on faith or feelings? There's a really good chance that you based that decision on feelings. Well, I felt really good when they came talking to me because they were really cute, and so I went ahead and hooked up with them. That would be making a decision based on sight or feelings. Making a decision based on faith would go, you're really good looking, and you dress well, and you smell good, and all those things, but are you a Christian? Because that's where we got to start right there. We got to start with that. That's biblical. Are you a Christian? I don't want to be unequally yoked, so let's just talk that first before we go any further. But see, it's hard, isn't it? In that moment, it's hard to just cut your feelings off. That's why this verse is such a big deal. Because there are times when we have to do that, where we have to go, wait a minute, hold on. This looks like a really good thing here. But let me ask you a question. Let me get to know you, or let me find out about the situation. What did Saul do? Well, notice what it says in verse 11. Saul said, when I saw. He's making a decision. So just to help you understand, he's doing the opposite of this. Flip it around. For we walk by sight, not by faith. See, Saul didn't believe Samuel was going to show up. So he doubted. He didn't have any faith. And he saw things going on around him that influenced him and caused him to make a certain decision. Now, look what else he does. Verse 11. What have you done? Saul said, when I saw that the people, number one, were scattered from me, and that you, number two, did not come within the days appointed, and that the Philistines, number three, gathered together at Michmash. What did he just do? It's a fatal mistake. This is an indicator for you. I'm helping you out here. This is a fatal mistake. This is an indicator of a good leader or a bad leader. A good leader, let's start with the bad leader. A bad leader, which is what Saul is turning into, is always going to blame someone else. A bad leader is always going to blame somebody else. Well, it wasn't me, it was this other person. Or, did you see what he did? It was you. You didn't show up in the amount of time that we said. It's like Adam and Eve. Remember that in the garden? When they ate the fruit, God showed up. What did Adam say? God, it was the woman you gave me. In other words, it was her fault and it was your fault because you gave her to me. The blame went somewhere else. Let me tell you what a good leader does. A good leader always takes responsibility. In other words, if you're the captain of the basketball team, captain of the soccer team, captain of the drama club, whatever it might be, co-captain, whatever it is, it's not somebody else's fault. It's my fault. I'm the leader. They're following my lead. Therefore, I didn't lead well. It's not anybody else's fault. I see this all the time. It's happened to me so many times over the years where somebody blamed me for something. Some leader said, oh, that youth pastor, or, Chris, he, this or that. That's an indicator. That's bad leadership. Good leadership says, oh, you know what? That's my fault. But it wasn't your fault. They did that. No, they're following me. I didn't lead them right. It's my fault. Always take responsibility. If you start blaming other people, to me, it indicates, and I think this is biblical, it indicates a coward. You're not a good leader. I want to be a good leader. Take responsibility. Saul blamed it on everybody. Well, it was the people who were leaving. Oh, and it was also your fault, Samuel, because you didn't show up on time. And also the Philistines were gathering. So it was everybody else's fault. He never once said, man, you know what? Please forgive me. I blew it. I messed up. I shouldn't have done that. That would have went so much better for him. Instead, he's going to pay the price. In verse 12, it says, "Then I said," here's Saul still talking, "the Philistines will now come down on me at Gilgal, and I have not made supplication to the Lord. Therefore I felt compelled, and I offered a burnt offering." So I felt something. I felt compelled. It just felt so good for me to do this. But it wasn't right. So it didn't matter how it felt. It wasn't right, and it was never going to be right. So you might have felt good about it, you might have felt scared, you might have felt whatever, but it was never going to be the right choice. Never was it going. It doesn't matter how strong your feelings are. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right. Classic mistake. Classic bad leader mistake. Let me show you something here. Because of that, in verse 13, he gets rebuked. That means corrected. And Samuel said to Saul, "You have done foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of the Lord your God, which he commanded you." You broke the commandment. "For now," listen to these words, "the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever." Do you hear that? Would have. Something just changed. And in verses 14 and 15, we read this: "But now your kingdom shall not continue." He's only been a king for 2 years, and already he's blown it. This is what Samuel says: "The Lord has sought for himself a man after his own heart." There's David. You go, "What? I didn't see David." No, his name's not there, but you will hear that phrase again as we continue to get into Samuel, further into Samuel, and that is a phrase that is associated with David. He was known as a man after God's own heart. Did you know that David was a murderer and an adulterer and a liar? So how could he be a man after God's own heart? Well, he was an imperfect man after God's own heart. But it's a reference to him there. And in verse 14, David's not even in the picture yet, but God's already working to choose him. So he says in verse 14, he's telling Saul, "The Lord has sought for himself a man after his own heart, and the Lord has commanded him to be commander over his people, because you have not kept what the Lord commanded you. You've been disobedient." Then Samuel arose and went up from Gilgal to Gibeah of Benjamin. And what did Saul do? Look how Saul responded, verse 15. "And Saul numbered the people present with him, about 600 men. Here's another bad quality of a leader. And it's one that's very, very common. It's common not just in leaders in general, but it is very common in church leadership. And that is measuring things according to numbers. How was the conference? Oh man, there were 800 people there. How was the camp? Oh man, there were 600 people there. How did the event go? Oh, there were so many people there. We get stuck on numbers, and in our minds, numbers indicate success. So if you had an event and 12 people showed up, oh, boring, I'm not going to that. That obviously wasn't successful. But if you had 5,000 people show up, oh, it's a move of God. God is in it. So I'll ask you a trick question here. You ready? How many disciples did Jesus have? Anybody know? How many did he have? What do you think? What's that? That's very, very close. I'm going to take it. He had 12. He had several disciples, many disciples, because there was a group of women that were following and helping. We read that in the scriptures. He had 12 official disciples, but even one of those, remember that guy named Judas? He was not even the real deal. He was a fake disciple. Jesus worked with literally thousands of people during his ministry. 3 years of ministry, there were times when he fed thousands of people. And yet out of all those thousands, he only had 12 disciples, and only 11 of them were the real deal. 11? Oh, boring. That was not successful. That's the way we think oftentimes. And church leaders do that oftentimes. Oh, we had so many people. And years ago, when I was a youth pastor at a different church, a different youth group, we had a group of young men in our youth group that were in a ska band. And they were playing at other places in other churches. And they played at a nearby church that was near to us. I'm obviously not going to tell you the name. What? Not near here, near in San Bernardino. There was a big church there, and they went to play. And I went to go support them. I showed up and to go to the concert. I pulled into that other church parking lot. This is no exaggeration. This literally happened. I pulled into the church parking lot to park my car, and there were two people from the youth group out in the parking lot fighting. Out there punching each other in the face. It would be like Owen and Levi. You pull up to church on a Sunday morning and you see Owen and Levi outside in the parking lot in a fight, punching each other. The youth group was filled, much bigger than our youth group back then, much bigger. Lots of students. They were successful, just not successful at what they were supposed to be doing. They were successful at staging fights out in the parking lot. It was not a godly situation scenario. So you can have lots of people, but it may not necessarily indicate success. Just make a little mental note and pay attention when church leaders are, how did that event go? Oh man, we had this many people. We so often go immediately to numbers. Well, if we're measuring success by numbers, it seems like Jesus failed. I mean, he only had really 11 disciples. He only lived to be 33 years old. He wasn't even that old. I mean, it doesn't sound like he did a very good job at all. And yet, here we are 2,000 years later, right? Those 12 guys, or 11 of them, turned the world upside down, little by little, person by person. It goes on in verses 16 through 18 to tell us that Jonathan, that he stayed there. Verse 17, there were raiders from, not the Oakland Raiders or Las Vegas Raiders, but different raiders from the Philistines. They came, and the battle lines are being drawn. And then I will put this up there, but we're not going to go through it. We're about finished right where we're at. But verses 19 to 23, I titled Weaponless. The reason I titled that is because verses 19 to 23 describe the weapon situation. The Israelites had no weapons. Saul the king and his son Jonathan had weapons. That was it. You go, where were their weapons? The Philistines had taken all of their weapons away. I told you the Israelites and Philistines had a long history. They hated one another, and the Philistines were much more powerful and had taken the Israelites' weapons away. And then they also took, that's what this is telling us, those verses, the Philistines also took their blacksmiths away, so they couldn't make weapons. So it actually goes on to say in there that if you had farming tools or gardening tools, and you had a pitchfork or you had some kind of tool that you needed sharpened, as an Israelite, you had to travel into Philistine country, and then you had to pay them to sharpen your tools for you. So the Philistines had complete control over the Israelites. So they've got 3,000 people against multiple thousands of Philistines. They've got no weapons. They've got a bad king. I mean, you talk about dire straits. You talk about, man, this is a bad situation. And it is just the right kind of a situation for God to do something miraculous, for God to work in a powerful way. And next time we're together, we will read and we'll find out about Jonathan and his faith and what God can do through two people. Just two. Just two. He doesn't need thousands. Just two is enough. And one was just a helper. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for today.